Good morning, Presley.
Good morning.
More people coming in. All right. Morning, Mr. Bell. Morning, Luke. Morning, Jasmine. Hey, Ellie. Morning, Lucy. Looks like we got Emily, we got Josie. Morning, Olivia. Morning, Lilia. Hey, Dawson. Hi, Amelia. Morning, Piper. What's up, James? Good morning, Aaron. Hi, Izzy. Few more people coming in. All right, so you guys know what to do. You got a warm up to work on, so go ahead and jump on that about what we talked about 2 days ago, properties of water. All right, hopefully that one shouldn't be too taxing for you, but it'll jog your memory a little bit about the different properties of water that we talked about, and a couple that one that we specifically that we didn't talk about, because it's not really a property of water, or not a thing water is known for. Okay, a few more people coming in. Good morning, Ayana. Go ahead and get that warm up going. A couple more people. All right. Morning, Dexter. Go ahead and do that warm up real quick. Morning, Max. Go ahead and finish the warm up. Tell Cameron. If you guys wouldn't mind, if you can, turn your cameras on, please. Okay, so it looks like we got most of the warm-ups coming in. Okay, who can tell me what is one property, which of those on that list is not a property of water? How about, I don't know, Emily, what do you think? Its water is not flammable. Okay. Yep, I wasn't really trying to trick anybody or anything like that. It was sort of one of those obvious questions. But it was just a little way of reminding you guys what the other properties of water are. So what's one other property of water? Ellie?
Surface tension.
Yeah, high surface tension, right? It has the molecules kind of stick together on the surface of the water. Max, what's another one? You're muted, Max. Cameron, help him out.
Sorry, we're having some bad connection problems. What was the question again?
What's other than high surface tension? What's another property of water? Quick.
Max didn't realize cuts. Capillary action.
Capillary action. Very good. All right, Cameron, pick somebody else. What's another one?
Max. Oh, okay. I will pick.
Quick, come on, let's go.
Dawson.
Dawson, what's another one?
Solid is less dense than water.
Yeah, the solid's less dense than the water. It floats in its own water. And then Dawson, pick one more person. There's one last one that we talked about.
Luke. I think I heard my name. It was like really glitchy though. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Everyone's like freaking out, but it dissolves in many different substances. It's like a universal solvent.
Yeah, so well, it dissolves many different things. That's not really the one that we talked about, although it was on the list, and it's an important property of water. The last one is the heat capacity, and that's a really important one. It's the ability of water to hold on to heat. So today, you guys, if you'll open up your agendas for the class, we are going to be talking about how temperature and salt concentration drive ocean circulation. So down here under where it says open, go ahead and open that up. We're gonna do a little, you guys have done the warm up, I'm gonna kind of walk you through this real quick. And since I have Luke, you're kind of an expert in this right now. Walk me through the hydrological cycle here.
I'm sorry. I can't hear what's going on. I don't know.
Okay, no problem.
It's too glitchy. I keep hearing my name, but I don't know what.
Well, we hear you loud and clear. So, but anyway, I'll go with somebody else. How about Olivia Germain?
Okay, so you want me to explain what's happening?
Yeah, start with the sun. What's happening here?
I don't know, if I'm gonna be honest.
The hydrologic cycle?
Yeah.
Come on, we just did this in environmental science.
Okay, I don't know. There's too much pressure.
Okay, well, that means I'm going to go to Lucy Martin, help her out.
So it's basically the way that, like, water moves around in the atmosphere and on the earth and stuff. So the sun heats up whatever, like the ocean, for example, and then the water evaporates up and condenses into clouds, and then it goes back down to the earth in like rain or snow, precipitation, and then it either goes directly into like a body of water, like a lake or a river, or it gets seeped into the groundwater, which eventually then flows like back to the ocean.
Okay, great job, Lucy. Very concise. All right. Let's see. Okay, so so this is the hydrological cycle. Hydro just means water, and this is something that you guys have probably been seeing since elementary school, some form of it or not, right? But this is actually that the evaporation of water and the cooling of water and cooling of temperatures is actually what kind of drives our part of what drives our big currents ocean circulation. So you guys remember that from the documentary you watched about Earth from space a little while ago. But I wanted to come back to this idea of concentration. Okay, so not concentration like you're thinking real hard, but concentration of salts in water. So if I back up a second here, when all of this water is running off the land, okay, it's actually picking up all kinds of solvents and solutes. Solutes. It's picking up things that dissolve in it. And a lot of those are types of salts. So salt in the ocean is measured. We measure the amount of salt in the water because it just piles up over time. We measure the amount of salt in the water in parts per thousand. Okay, so we talk about the concentration in the ocean is being measured in parts per thousand of salt water. And one way of thinking about that is that if you have 35 ppt, parts per thousand, of salt water, in 1,000 different buckets, if you had 1,000 buckets of water and they had a concentration of 35 ppt, if you separated the salt from the water, you'd get 35 buckets of pure salt and 965 buckets of fresh water. So that's one way of thinking about it. Instead of being a percent, it's like a per thousand. Okay? So what I wanted you guys to do real quick is I have a simulation here that you're going to go to, and that's on your classwork page. And there's nothing to write down for this one, but where it says do concentration simulation here, I'm going to send you to breakout rooms. And this little simulation is, I don't know, I love these things, they're pretty cool. It allows you to actually play around with the concentration of a solute in water. So here we got like Kool-Aid drink mix that I'm shaking into the water. And with this little valve here on this spigot, I can open and close the amount of, I can add water to it. And I can measure the concentration using this little probe here. So I drag this probe over here, and they measure this in moles per liter. I can't translate that into parts per thousand right now, but just imagine, like, you can see the moles is a chemistry term. It's the number of particles of something. So number of particles of drink mix per liter of water here. But just think of it, I just want you to, in relative terms, tell me like what happens to the concentration when we crank up this little slider here that's evaporation, okay? So I want you to do it not with drink mix, but if you look at this little pull down menu over here, you've got sodium chloride, okay? So that's salt, NaCl right here. Sodium is Na, Cl is chloride. So I'm gonna send you guys to breakout rooms, and I really want you to take like 5 minutes, and I want you to answer 2 questions. What happens when we increase the amount, what happens to the concentration when we increase the amount of liquid? And what happens when we increase the evaporation, so we decrease the amount of liquid, okay? So, stop sharing the screen, and when we go to, you guys are just gonna go to breakout rooms. So, again, answer those 2 questions and be ready to discuss them when we come back. All right, and I'm thinking like 3 minutes. All right, go.
And then when it evaporates,
It
the
goes more.
concentration increases because it's only the water that's evaporating, I think.
And then nothing happens if you just drain it.
When you have more water, you have more opportunity for sodium chloride to fill the space until it gets saturated, and even if it's not saturated, you can like have the evaporation go up, and then it'll eventually become saturated because the amount of sodium chloride is overloading the
How's it going, guys?
Good.
So what'd you come up with?
So when you add more water, it becomes less concentrated because it gives the salt more to like dissolve in. But then when you evaporate the water, the only thing left is the salt. So it becomes higher concentrated. Same with if you decrease the water because it just has more salt per thousand, per part, I guess, per thousand.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Yeah, the when you evaporate all the water though, you just have little salt crystals left behind, is that right? Okay, you guys made that observation? Great. So at that point, we would say that the solution, there is no concentration because there's no solution anymore. Right, all the water is gone. So you're just left with salt, which, you know, we measure in like grams or moles. Okay. Close all the breakout rooms. Everybody's got 30 seconds. Okay, looks like everybody's back. So breakout room number 1, that was Cameron, Dexter, Ellie, and Presley. So what happens to the concentration when I increase the volume of water, when I add water?
When you add water, the salt's concentration is lower.
Yeah, it goes down. Okay. And breakout room number 2, James, Jasmine, Lilia, and Lucy. What happens when I evaporate water? What happens to the concentration?
It goes up.
Yeah, concentration increases, okay? And eventually, notice what happens when I completely evaporate the water here, where I can't actually register any concentration at all because it's no longer, we call it a solution when there's a mixture of a solid and a liquid like that, dissolved solid. So, okay, so the next thing that I have for you is this awesome video I want you to watch because oops, looks like somebody fell out there. When we talk about the hydrologic cycle, when you evaporate salt water, what's left behind? Room 3, Dawson, Luke, and Piper.
Salt?
Yeah, the salt's left behind, right? So the water can go away, it can go into its gaseous form, but then it leaves behind the salt. So like we just saw in that simulation, the salt concentration goes up. Now, an interesting thing happens with water when it freezes, okay? And I want you to think about that as we watch this video. This is a 2-minute video, it's called The Icy Finger of Death. Did anybody ever see the documentary series Frozen Planet? No? It's several years old at this point, but it's...
Is this the stuff that kills like the starfish and...
Yeah, I think you're right, Luke. I think I played it in chemistry class last year because I think it's super cool. But let's see. So I'm just gonna share a video with you. It's also on your agenda. So on our little PowerPoint there. So if you wanna look at it yourself, you can. And okay, here we go. I think it's Alec Baldwin is the narrator. It sounds like him.
Sometimes winter extends its deadly reach into the shallow waters under the ice.
Pretty cool, huh? Okay, well, let's think about that on a massive scale. Okay, so we're thinking that there's, you know, where is a part of the planet that is going to have lots and lots of seawater freezing? Yeah, Antarctica would be a place, right? And when we watched that, from that documentary video that you guys watched, we saw that there was that big underwater waterfall in Antarctica. And so what's happening there is that if you look at this diagram, parts of the planet are cooling. So on the upper left here, we've got equatorial regions where there's lots of sun and it's really warm. And then over here, we've got kind of polar regions, which are towards the North and the South Pole, and they're really cold. And what's happening here is that as the seawater freezes, it forms brine, right? Brine is that super salty solution. Okay, so I've got this a little bit reversed, but I'm gonna share my video with you because I've got an experimental setup here that we are gonna give this a shot. No promises about whether or not it'll work. I've been experimenting with a few different ways of visualizing it, but so pin my video here. Okay, so I've got a tub of water. This morning in this plastic bag, I filled it with ice, and its sense is just about entirely melted. You can't really see, there's a little bit of ice left here. And I got a big tub of water, so this is gonna be an ocean basin, and over here on the right, I got a light bulb. So the ice, hopefully it's not a huge leap to expect that the ice is cooling the water, and over here the light bulb is heating the water. And there's also a bunch of glitter and powders and stuff in there that I was trying to get to work with visualizing what's going on here. So instead, I'm gonna try the old standby green food dye, and I'm gonna drip some green food dye in here. Okay, and it's sinking towards the bottom here. And hopefully if I have this all kind of set up right, what should happen is that it hits the bottom, it should start to kind of move across. Okay, so in this case, I don't have any salt in this water. It's just super cold, super cooled liquid. But colder water, of course, is denser than warmer water. So I'm gonna leave it here, and you guys, we're gonna watch this for a minute, and take out a pencil and paper and kind of write down what's happening here. Like, we're just gonna watch this in real time for a couple minutes. Make some observations. Okay, so we'll leave that for the time being, and I'll come back to that in a moment once I get all the food coloring off my hands. All right, but I'm gonna go back to our to our little presentation here. And all right, so when temperature and salt drive circulation patterns, we give it a particular name. It's called thermohaline circulation. What does thermo mean, do you think? I don't know, I'll go with Dexter. What do you think thermo means?
Heat.
Yeah, heat. Okay, and haline, if you had to guess, how about Lilia? What do you think haline means? Well, we covered temperature. That's the thermo part. So what's the other part of this? Remember what's dissolved in the water? Okay. Well, there's one other thing that's driving this, right? And if you go back, I'm not gonna let you off the hook. I'm gonna work our way back here. And what's in that brine? All right, Lilia, what's the other thing here? Haline means what? Salt, there it is. Okay, yeah. So we're talking about temperature and salt, thermohaline circulation, and that is definitely a vocab word. Okay, so what ends up happening is that we see the salty cold water sinking, and it hits the seafloor, and it spreads across the bottom, and then it kind of rises back up again as warm water heats from the surface. And when we look at where it says surface flow here, as water moves from the warm part of the planet to the cold part of the planet, we end up getting these huge circulation patterns. So they call this the global ocean conveyor, because it looks like a big conveyor belt. And a conveyor belt actually moves things from one point on the planet, or from one area to another, and then the bottom of the belt kind of feeds back around to itself, back to the beginning. So this is sort of really general patterns of ocean water flow on the surface of the planet. Now there are all these continents in the way, so the water's kind of got to go around the continents, and it sinks down to the bottom. And so it takes water about 1,000 years to sink down up at the poles here, right? So this is the northern, up in the Arctic Ocean, it sinks here. And then sort of same thing over here around Antarctica, it sinks down here. And it flows along the bottom of the water, and then it kind of rises up again as it gets more towards these areas in the North Pacific and in the central Indian Ocean, and it kind of comes back up there. And these are super huge patterns. So what I wanted to show you here is an actually what this looks like right now. And I'm gonna copy and paste this real quick. All right. So here's our null school model that we keep coming back to. And on the surface here, remember this is a heat map, but it's not necessarily about temperature. This is about current speed. Okay, and what do we see along the east coast of the United States? Ayana, what do we see?
Like ocean, or like the currents and patterns of like where it's going.
Yeah, exactly. You were looking at a river in the ocean. This particular river has a specific name. Anybody know it? Just call it out. I'll give you a hint. It starts in the Gulf of Mexico here.
The Gulf Stream.
Thank you, Dexter. Yeah, we call this the Gulf Stream. Yeah, and this water actually is moving pretty fast for water. It can move up to about 6 or 7 miles per hour. We say about 6 knots. Okay, and what it is doing is it's taking warm water. It's moving heat, actually, heat energy, warm water from down kind of towards the equator over here, and it's moving it up into the cold regions. And so what's happening up here around Greenland, water is sinking, and it's kind of pulling this Gulf Stream up here. But there's so much heat in this water that it actually is the reason, if you look at our map of the world here, it's the reason that Europe is warmer than, Labrador in Canada over here. It's the same latitude, but because all this warm water is coming over to Europe, this is England and Ireland and Spain and France over here. They're way warmer than areas that are at the same latitude on the west coast. I mean, on the east coast of North America, on the western edge of the Atlantic Ocean. So you think down here, this is the French Riviera, right? You think, sand and sun. And if you follow that line of latitude all the way over here, it's Massachusetts, right? Maine, Massachusetts, same latitude as the French Riviera. And they're way colder in the wintertime, especially. So the reason is because the Gulf Stream here moves away from the shore this is Maine and New England up here. So we see lots of patterns of ocean movement, ocean currents like that in other places, right? We see currents along the equator, but there are some other really famous ones. There's another one off of Japan called the Kuroshio current. Okay, same thing's happening, right? We're getting warm water at the equator moving up into the North Pacific here. Okay. And then, oh, cool. Okay. So guys, let's go back to our little simulation here. Our garage laboratory, and take a look at what's happening with our with our thermohaline circulation. Oh, it's tough to see, but can you guys see it? What's happening over here on the right side? How about Ellie? What do you see? It's a little faint. Maybe I can get a better angle on it. Yeah, the food dye is going up, right? So it came down to the bottom, and it kind of runs into this weird, like, kind of wall, and it just goes straight up there, which is like super cool, and I'm super excited that I got this to work, because I was really kind of stressing about it this morning. Awesome. All right. So yeah, here's an example. We're setting up one of these circulation cells. So this is actually what happens on this, like on a planetary scale, happening, in a tub of water in our garage lab right now, which is wild. Okay. So another property of water that I wanted to talk about real quick is the tendency for molecules to spread out. And you guys remember, some of you will remember this from chemistry. Molecules spread out through, anybody remember the process? It starts with a D. Okay, you might remember it from biology too. It often is lined up with a process called osmosis. Oops, wrong button. Anybody remember? How about? There you go. Thank you, Jasmine. Sorry, you didn't. I can't see anybody's hands right now. Okay. Yeah, diffusion, right? It's the tendency of a molecule to like spread out. Like, you know how when somebody's wearing like a lot of cologne or a lot of perfume, you can kind of smell them a little bit from far away, but when you get closer, you're smelling them more and more and more, right? Yeah, right. It's like I see a lot of people going like this. That's great. Yeah. So diffusion is the tendency for molecules to move from areas of high concentration to low concentration. They want to even out. Okay, and it's spelled diffusion. So the same thing kind of happens with heat energy. It moves from areas of high heat to areas of low heat as well. And we see this in all kinds of things. Things move from, I don't know, areas of like, you could say, Yeah, I'll leave it there. Like think about it in terms of high concentration or low concentration, or energy does the same thing. It tends to move from places with super high energy to places with low, or things with low energy. Okay, so I wanted to go back to our presentation real quick. And where were we? We're on. All right. So here's our surface current model, and thermohaline circulation. This is just a better description of it so that you guys can kind of refer back to it. But warmer water kind of is confined in between 45 degrees north, so and the south latitude, and south latitude, so in between, kind of like around the equator to about halfway towards the poles. And then the water increases. The density of the water increases. It gets more dense the closer you get to the poles because it gets colder. And as the water itself gets colder and the molecules come closer together. And then when it freezes, then all of that salt is left behind, and you get brinicles forming, or you get brine forming rather than brinicles. Brinicles are just kind of a neat thing that happens there. Okay, so today, let's see, couple of housekeeping things. Hopefully, by the way, you met your learning target in that you're able to explain how salt concentration and water temperature drive ocean circulation. That's our learning target for the day. I think I posted it, but I may have forgotten to mention it. Those of you have homework, and it's to read the wave, pages 91 through 98, and you're answering some questions. The wave references, this part of the reading references a scientific conference. What is a scientific conference? Yeah, or an academic conference. Let me go with...
It's like a science fair.
It is. It's like a science fair for adults. Okay? So I'm showing you some image right now of science fairs for adults. And typically what happens is that you have like experts in the field. You get all the people that know something about one really specific thing or a category of things. Like you might have like AGU, is the American Geophysical Union, is a huge conference that, before the COVID days would meet every year, and they would come together and there would be lots of experts talking about different aspects of geology. Another one would be like ESA, the Ecological Society of America. You get a bunch of ecologists together. There are groups of physicists, groups of chemists, like all. CTAC was one that I've been to before, the Society for Environmental Toxicology and Chemistry, SETAC. So these are opportunities for scientists to get together and talk to one another in their field and share new findings. And so one of the things that people do are these big lecture hall kind of situations. Medical doctors, like they do it. Conferences happen really for any type of profession, and sometimes they have these things called poster sessions though. And over here on the kind of right side of your screen, you can see an image of a poster session, and it literally is like a science fair poster. Somebody puts up some research that they did in the form of a poster, and people walk around and they look at the posters, and you get a chance to talk to the scientists. So this is a poster session, and conferences can be kind of small, maybe like a few dozen people or a few hundred people, or they can be like massive, like AGU, I think, has something like 30,000 people coming to it, American Geophysical Union, every year. Again, I don't know how they do that now, that we can't all get together for stuff. But anyway, your reading actually talks about the authors go walking around in a scientific conference of people who study waves. So they're physical oceanographers who study waves. And just kind of imagine a scene like this over on the right, where she's walking around and asking them questions. Okay, so on top of that, anybody who is interested in college and the high school, We're gonna do the applications today at 1:30. So we're gonna get you set up to do college in the high school. 1:30 p.m. today. Come back to this room, this Google class. This Zoom meeting, and we'll get you all set up for college in the high school. I am super psyched that this thing worked. I'm really kind of fired up about that. So I would say, try this at home, but watch out about electricity close to water. I don't know if you could use a hair dryer or something to do it too. But anyway, guys, that's thermohaline circulation. We're going to come back to this a lot more. And in the meantime, live long and prosper. I'll see you all on Monday.